Good morning and good night, I think, because we have one poet from India, our youngest poet's traveling. She's in India. Good morning, Sarah, and good morning to all of you. I'm really excited about today's reading because I think this is really exemplary of why we launched Matwala. Today's the kind of celebration we look forward to, and we want to keep seeing South Asian poets flourish, publish more books. I'm going to keep my opening remarks really, really to the minimum because I want to give you poets the platform. So, welcome to the fourth event of the year. We have two more coming up. A reading for Dalit poets and Asian American poets in September and October. Please try to attend and share information about these readings to others. I just want to say, really at the outset, thank you to Kashyana for stepping in and helping us so enthusiastically with hosting. Congratulations to all of you. I'm really looking forward to hearing these new poems from you. So it's a big salute to all of you. We know the hard work that goes into it, the wretched search for publishers after that. We all share the same journey. So this is really a day to applaud each other. I'll say one last thing. Please try to buy each other's books, at least one book, because that becomes very, very important in our journeys ahead. And the last thing I'd like to do is I just want to cast a special spotlight on two youth poets, Sara Garg and Dia Kanduri. Sara Garg won, it's like really incredible. She won an adult chapbook contest because there's hardly any avenues for youth publishing. And she won she'll tell us more about it when she talks. And Dia Kanduri, another student, both these girls are 18 years old. Her chapbook just got accepted by Dancing Girl Press. And when we heard back from the publisher, the response was, I wish I was writing like this when I was 18. So hats off to these young, young souls doing brilliant work. Please go to www.matwala.com to learn more about what we do. And if you go to Sync Poetry, you'll see what Sarah and they are doing. They're doing brilliant work for Matwala. So that's it. I'm handing over the mic, handing over the platform to all of you, and just going to sit back and relax.
Thank you, Usha. One more time, just voice check. You can hear me fine?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. All right. Thank you, everybody. Again, Usha, Pramila, Matwala, and every one of you poets, and especially Divya and Sarah. Thank you for joining us. So excited and so grateful. Usha, I know you keep saying my enthusiasm, but that's, like you said, it's all about community. We have to lift and support each other, and it cannot be left to one or two people to run or to grow the community. So grateful. Thank you. So excited to listen to everybody. What we have next is the reading. And this was our poster. Indran, I know it's hard to capture all your books in one poster. So yes, please go ahead and read from as many as you'd like to. But these are the books we are celebrating today. And we are, as you all start reading, I will post your bios in the chat just to save time and allow time for reading. When I do that, and as you complete your reading, feel free to post the link to buy your books so that we can all go in and save the links to buy your books as well. We will, like Usha said, we'll run into the reading quickly in a certain order, and the order is alphabetical. Unless somebody is not ready, then I'll obviously take the lead and rehost it to somebody else. We'll plan to read for around 55, 60 minutes. 6 to 7 minutes is great if everybody can keep that, so that we are respectful of each other's reading and everyone gets the time to read. Usha has been kind to actually give up her time. She also has a new chapbook coming up so that everyone can get their time to read. So thank you to Usha for doing that. We will come into some other screens, and Anita, I have your screen when I start with you. But let's jump in, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and jump into the actual session. Again, this is the order for everybody to just take a quick look. Afsar followed by Anita, and then Indran, and I'll give a quick warning in the chat for whoever's coming next. Any questions before we jump in? Okay, great. Let's go ahead. Afsar, all yours. I will post your bio, and I know all our bios are extremely exemplary, detailed, and thorough. So spend the time to know about each other through the bio I post in the chat. But let's focus and celebrate poetry in the next couple of minutes. After all yours.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Usha and Kashiana Matwala, for this beautiful event. I want to begin with a tribute to Bismillah Khan. The title is, not going to read the entire poem, it's a long poem. I read some segments. A piece of bread, a country, and a Shehnai. In your final rest on a rope cart, were you still dreaming of a piece of bread? Beloved one, we the people of this country, of that country, can make anything but a piece of bread for you. When you poured your pain into your pipe of Shehnai, did I ever tell you all my history is a broken sleep, a shattered, genderless dream that multiplies? Your dream of bread is not far from her battlefield anymore. Your body at last on the rope cart, the last pinning glance of the war. They are the same dream, one restlessness, one violent shriek. This is what I am now. When you left, in the Shehnai turned alone into her dark corner and sang to herself, beating and beating the ceaseless tune of the dream you left or felt. That's poem one. Poem two, name calling. Usman, Ushman, Ushman. The sky is hanging like your cloud-colored goatee, trying hard to hide your body in a dirty pajama. You scared all the children away from the river. A body like a wound peeks from your torn shirt. You are the one street dog, doggedly haunted by a ball. I remember the evenings you would run to my mother, complaining to her that I was with the naughty kids who never stopped teasing you. I also remember with just one cup of chai, all those burning oceans inside you would cool down abruptly. Now, I don't see much difference between you and me. We are the same, except I don't have tears in my eyes. Mother is not here to share my stories. Usman, times never change, only the roles change. Several years past your death, I realize you are a wound as tall as a human body. I am the wound now. And when I go to sleep, the wounds open their huge doors, and amidst the wounds, I still tease you, heckling you, Ushman. That was the poem two. And then I read the final poem, the accented word. All my words until now were cut off from their blood. In the bustling market of a few words, not even words whose milk or blood, souls are just bankrupt bodies. Words born out of wind, nothing but wind. Words don't know the music of feet stamping on the ground. Words like arms with no bones. Words like a pile of meat whose vertebrae crawled away. Here is a bustling market of meat. A market smells of meat. A market piles of words sounding like poetry. Words are stillborn babies. Their blood has gone bad with the white poison. Their words have gone bad from the accent, have been poured, shared, and bathed in white poison since I was little. And now I want to speak out for myself, but my voice is in chains and my language is poison. And the language of my time is poison. We live on the brackish water of life. You know, my words are blood smeared. They are slave words. When they open their arms to the sky, the old world begins to shudder and sweat. I go back to my mother and her tongue. I go back to my mother and her tongue. I speak from my accent, real accent. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was brilliant, Afsar. If you have not had the Afsar's book already, Gulzar, I want to read Gulzar's blurb. Gulzar says, Osho once said only poets could be prophets. I wish he had read Afsar Muhammad. Afsar, so my question is, Sufi poet, you're clearly a Sufi inspired writer and poet. Could you just tell us in a sentence or two before we jump to the next reader on how that inspires your poetry?
Thank you so much, Kashiana, for that question. Actually, Usha also kind of asked the same question long back when I published my book on village Muslim saints with Oxford University Press. But my response, as usual, is like, I'm not using this term in its highly theorized, intellectualized kind of usage. I'm using this term just from my village background, where I used to see all these local Muslim saints. Of course, they are not really Muslim. They're kind of hybrid saints, with whose memories, whose stories, and then whose rituals I basically grew up. So my entire knowledge about Sufism, it is not coming from the high. It is coming from my village, my rural setting, and the shrines that I have witnessed through my childhood. So all the vocabulary that I use in this book basically is not like high Sufism. It's very low, like I don't want to use the term low, but it is kind of if you want to use academic term, you can say subaltern kind of, but I actually don't like that kind of terminology, but that is how I see it. I see it like more connected to my childhood rather than textbookish knowledge.
Afsar, can you hold the cover of your book for a minute before we
Sure.
move on?
Sure.
I think that deserves a little round of applause. It's a stunning, beautiful cover.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll keep coming back to these questions, but let's go to Anita next. Anita, all yours.
Thank you so much to Usha, Kashiana, and Matwaala. I'm very glad to be here with all of you on this platform today. Kashiana, can you share, please?
Yes, I'm bringing it up now.
Okay, so I have two recent books out. This is called What's Wrong with Us Kali Women. That's one of them. And the other one is Kisses at the Espresso Bar. And this is the book that I'm going to read from today. It's a collection of acrophistic poetry, which means poetry based on someone's artwork. And so I have 7 artists from around the world whose artwork I requested. And then I wrote these poems. Of course, the poems are not an exact replication of the artwork, but my feelings that were generated from it. I write a lot about injustices, and my poems are pretty surreal in nature, but today I'm going to read two very different poems, and these are prose poems. The first one is called Nagini, that may not comply. Nagini is a female snake, and the symbolism of snake has been used in mythology and culture and movies and pop culture as well. Not always in a positive way, but this poem attempts to bring out the strength and determination of a woman. Nagini that may not comply. The umbilical cord, the incense that heralds new birth. Sorry, I have to stop at this side. I wanted to say that the image here on the left, I want to acknowledge the artist. This is by Loretta Liujek from Canada. She's a mixed media artist. I'd like to go back to the poem. Nagini that may not comply. The umbilical cord, the incense that heralds new birth, the smoke that rises from handi, labored sustenance. Handi is a pot. The fumes above a pyre, someone's tail scampering off into the thick. All turns and twists of creation, celebration, destruction that I can recite in ballads of kingdoms underground, overground, guarded by Nebeheku or by Jatkas or Sita's heart set on a fake deer and commoners roaming around animated. Things were not always under control, just beneath the surface. I can recite a limerick to lighten the mood. Once upon a time, a servant lived across the moat. He had a beard like that of a goat. The goat he ate, his own beard was the bait. The serpent who lived across the moat. Does it help? Nemo, Nagas, Sirenunos, all avatars are intertwined with humanity. Humanity which portends good, bad, evil. The she and he and everyone else. Antlers, birds, and fish pass by scribbling graffiti. Graffiti of lives gentrified, free falling with odd meteors in a tormented pale sky. And the handler with his one foot cramped against the neck, forcing a predicated outcome, has humankind aghast, with mouths gaping, lips pouting, eyes crestfallen, steamy yet quizzing. Some unbeknownst hands create illegible alphabet patterns in the dirt, like escape routes out the maze, reminding life is in our hands. Don't blame mythologies and reincarnations. Don't be fooled by stories you did not write or witness. Don't write stories of destruction to give a pass to the rider. Don't then bid the Nagini to the sacrifice. Do you think she will comply? Thank you. I will now read my next poem. I'll wait for Kashiana to pull that out. So this is a very different poem. It's a poem of love. And this is a drawing. It's a graphite pencil art drawing by a New Jersey-based artist, Anthony Gartman. So this is the poem that I was inspired to write from this drawing. My hands tiptoe to the tip of your toes. Don't somersault, just linger, stride softly. In the distance, I hear a moan, loud enough to measure on the Richter scale. The machine on the table is going berserk. Many Corfis are circling, Corfis are dancers, are circling with creme de la creme, hand-picked Merlots, Malbecs, and Madeiras, and a skyscraper speaks in strapping notes like early morning intonations. Canals of fresh gladiolus flow by. Garlands of Rajnigandha tread water, and a few drops of oud rise to the surface, all within arm's reach. Should I dare even breathe? As I slide off the skyscraper, steel and my scent of a dream collide, touch points behind ears, on wrists, between thighs, beneath my navel are invigorated. Stop cussing, you say. My curses are speckled with sugar honey. There's a loud crash as glass shatters. Thank you. Kashian, I can't hear you.
That was brilliant, Anita. Thank you. And the images, of course, I don't need to say anything about it. But the question for you is, how did you select the images that you did? Was there a process to it?
Right. So I came to know these artists. One I've known since childhood. There's an artist in the book who does a lot of quilt work. So I used her quilt work to write two poems. Other artists I came to know through Facebook or otherwise, and so therefore I had been, watching their work over the last couple of years, and I was highly impressed. Each one, I think, spoke to my heart and my soul in a way that I was inspired to write the poetry. I was impassioned to write those poems, and then I requested each one of them, can I get your images for the book? And I shared the poetry with them just in case there was something objectionable that they didn't like in my poetry, because I was symbolizing their images. And I particularly decided not to choose well-known artists because their work is already admired.
Yeah.
I wanted to showcase artists around the world whose work is not well known, and therefore give them a platform as well.
Well, thank you. That's another example of the Matwaala spirit, right? It's all about collaboration and community. So thank you, Anita.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Indran, are you ready? Are we ready for you? Why don't you jump in, Indran? Indran, you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Kashiana. Thank you, Usha, Pramila, Matwaala. I'm going to read a couple of poems from The Migrant Stage, which is a book that came out during the pandemic, so almost disappeared, but it's still around, and I would wish you to take a look at it. It's my sort of book about the state, the migrant. Marked. I write to all corners of the far-flung universe, yet some critics remind me of the emphasis I place on the birth island and its follies. They ask me why I don't move elsewhere. Surely life is there, and that road of excess which should take me to the palace where I can seduce the princess and settle down with a few hundred servants. But I will not be content with the Lord's life. I'm a worker bee, better yet an engineer supervising, refocusing a river, moving its channel towards new and expectant fields, full of maiden shoots and mewling lambs, but stuck by the force of the river's original impulse to course according to its ancient design that does not depend on man or free will or immigrant desire, no matter what I do or where I write the tale etched on my forehead. Cricket match, Cope Field. Cope Field is a cricket field in Haverford, Pennsylvania, in the United States. We're coming in from the cold. I remember raised on my teammates' shoulders, how I was carried off the field. We had won, finished the season streaking, victorious. We felt good. We had overcome obstacles facing our hodgepodge side, half of which had learned to play cricket at the college late in life. Coming in, beer cans were popping that evening, Marley blasting on the record player. We danced. I was the captain. I had my glasses knocked off my nose by a ball early that spring. I was dizzy, saw a sky full of lights, but I got up, then spent my energy over the rest of the season winning with talents under my command. I was right. I was right. The team played fine, fine. I could put myself down. The order faced slower bowling. It was all right. It was all right. Proverbs smacked fours and sixes all over the field. We danced. We danced. Underwood bowled the Yorker. We laughed and cried. Kamran, our coach, cooked Pakistani delights at his home to celebrate. Even now, a chai and a chapal kebab tastes like victory. The cricket match, Cope Field. And now I'll turn to 10,000 Steps Against the Tyrant, not with the tyrant. And I want to read, let me begin with just this one, The Right Path. Let us roll, America. Let us not look back. Let us seize the fellow by the absent coat tail. Let us reveal the traipsing emperor nude, and let us remember and defend the rights of our virus dead. But let us do so with respect, with love. Why? Because Jesus says so. Why? Because we are not jackals and hyenas. Why? Because we have got to get back on the road to the promised land. Voting song. I'm going to take Mother to the polling station. This may be her last chance to vote for the right path from the burning bush, sinking ship, roadkill, victims of the raging virus. I'm going to take Mother to the polling station. And son, make sure you get that absentee ballot sent here while you visit. Every vote will count. And daughter, although you cannot vote, not this time, I want you to know that we have tried with all of our heart and mind to throw the bastards out. Toppling. I think I'll finish with these two short poems from the pandemic section of the book. Toppling. Give me your elbow. Take the host in your hands. But man, the Pope just spoke the sermon from his living room on videotape. This matter is turning extreme. A taxi driver got infected from his ride. Can we really shut down a city, a region, the whole world? Be prepared, we're told. We were waiting for fire, a bomb, icebergs breaking up in our soup. But this virus is more insidious, a slow shaking and swaying of the building in the mind before it falls. Thank you. I think I don't know if I have time for the last one or I'll stop there.
Go ahead. Finish
with this one. Okay. Late night olive oil. Let us put the letters and fears and boiling emotions on the page. Mommy, why did you go to the kitchen stealthily without a word to your sleeping son, without your walker, to find the large bottle of olive oil, to pour it on the table and floor, to fill a small vessel which you meant to carry back to your room as if nobody would notice until you called my name, because you could not negotiate the rest of the way from dining table to bedroom, vessel in hand, without cane or walker. I write to atone for my flailing words, saying never, never, never again. The kitchen is prohibited. Your mania for oil in the hair is prohibited. The stealthy, mischievous, childish, truant foray into the darkness with a torch in hand, which you forgot on the countertop, all of this is prohibited. Your losing memory and control are prohibited. These words are prohibited. Decline and death are prohibited. Thank you so much.
Wow, of course. And the reason I allowed you to go with that last one, because I suspected it would be the olive oil one, and that's one of my favorites.
Thank you.
Indran, Naomi Shihabnai, I think, said in one of your blurbs saying your voice is an anthem for recovery. And we all heard that clearly as I see heads nodding around the room. I'm going to reserve the question and keep us moving. We'll come back for questions later. Megha, all yours.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kashiana. I know this is the world we are living in with like Zoom problems and everything. But as they say, the show must go on. We as the poets, we know that we should carry on even whatever troubles we like face in our life. So without taking any more minute, first I would like to thank Usha, Kashyana, Pramila, and the whole Matwala team for making this happen. It's an honor and privilege to share this space with such brilliant poets, and I know few of them, and I'm excited to learn more about the new and the young poets as well. I'm going to be reading three short poems from my book, which is called My Body Lives Like a Thread. This is my debut poetry collection. I have published two chapbooks before that, and my next poetry book is going to be published next year. It has been accepted for publication. So the first poem, thank you so much. The first poem I'm going to read is called Does Hurt Have a Gender? Can we all please mute ourselves, because I'm hearing something in the background. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. Does hurt have a gender? What does the body want when it breaks down into a million pieces? Its pulverized existence wanting acceptance, only to be ignored and walked over, left over like day-old milk on the kitchen counter, forgotten and left to curdle. Why do we keep numbing the sharp pain, the knotted lamentation caught in our hungry mouths that cuts our soul both ways and leaves us to bleed in this world, profused with sweat and blood, a moment indescribable, leaking and soaking the ridges of the curbside, here the thickness of your blood, its viscosity and the gravitas of your speech depends on the color of your skin, a pain untenable. An insurmountable pain rising in my mouth, a dichotomy between pain and acceptance, a desire abominable. Do screams have a religion too? Do cries have a race? Does hurt have a gender? Do wounds have a nationality? Does your tongue curl into sin when you call out my name? Does the triteness of your ideologies still mollify your pain? And the next one is called My Body is Not an Apology. And this is the title poem from my chapbook. And it's also part of my full length collection. My body is not an apology. This body, my body, is not an apology. It's a prayer. Forgiveness wrapped in the filigraries end of my skin, frayed at the ends, battered for so long by your pointy convictions and the cookie cutter rules that try to shape and mold this body along. My body is not an apology. It doesn't desire to fit in a frame mapped inch by inch, else to be ashamed. My body is not an apology. It's a roar, a declaration, an unapologetic, unabashed, straight in your face truth, a war cry, a deafening scream from the silence. My body is not an apology. This body will not be mapped as a benchmark for beauty, an attempt to hide crow's feet or the spider veins from your wild eyes and your forked tongue. My body is not an apology, but a safe haven, an epitome of affection, a metaphor for crimson love that flows in my veins for years to come. My body is not an apology, it's an eye of the storm, a dance of destruction, a safe haven for life, forgiveness in disguise, with love neatly folded in the wrinkles of my skin, warmth oozing from every pore of my being, a lesson etched in every single crow's feet, forgiveness written through every inch of me. This body is not an apology, it is a profound lesson, a triumphant proclamation, an unfettered declaration. And I'm going to close the reading with my poem, with the third poem, which is called We All Rise Out of Love. And it's bring together my love for my culture and my food. We all rise out of love. My tongue twists and turns, trying to fit the cookie cutter in a land unknown. The words put in my mouth, like the small portions, those cores, made by warm, supple hands of my mother as I gently wait for the next one. Her fingers always doused by the fragrance of bay leaves, turmeric tainted, the various shades as she kneads the atta and dispenses life lessons in the kitchen on a warm summer day. She taught me kindness comes from the heart, but hunger pierces a man the most. So learn to soothe hunger, the lingering pain, as she puts all her strength into kneading the atta into the dollop of the milky moon. My language is different than yours. I try fervently to explain to my son, who keeps correcting my pronunciation as I teach him the basics of love, kindness, and purity of heart. Sometimes I wonder how this world, marred and demarcated by the boundaries, those twisted pronunciations would look beautifully kneaded together, like the lump of moon sitting in the copper clad parat of my mother, waiting to rise out of warmth. Thanks everyone for listening.
I love that last poem, Mega. I've heard you read it earlier. That's beautiful. Uh, Mega, probably we'll reserve the question. Let's keep going because we missed a little bit of time and we'll come back to questions. The question I do have that you can think about is, did you always know that title poem is going to be the title of your book? So reserve the answer. We'll come back to it.
Thank you.
All right, Pramila next, followed by Sarah. Pramila, are you ready?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kashyana. Thank you, Usha. And it's just lovely to read with all my sister poets. And I'm just so impressed with what I've heard so far. I'm going to read from my latest book called We Are Not a Museum. And it's about the history of Jewish people living in Kerala. I grew up in Cochin, so I spent much of my childhood there. And I was always inspired by the multicultural region where I came from. And was inspired to write this book as a panacea to the current divisiveness and nationalism growing in India. This is the cover of my book. And I had the link ready to post, but I was busy doing, putting the meeting ID, and I lost that link, so I'll put it back later. The long journey. 1. She bundled everything they owned: 2 skirts, 2 blouses, a loaf of bread, dried olives, figs, some meat, a square cloth, 2 bowls, Joseph's robe, the family Bible, and a small sack of earth to remind them where they came from. 2. The earth carried the smell of trees, the light of the moon under which she prayed, the sound of water. She heard it call, "Come back." Centuries later, her progeny heeded its call. 3. Hear her say, "Just the rocking of the boat, a boat on the waters, whisper of prayers, a slight wind, will us to live that day and sleep without a care, just to find a place to call on Yahweh to enfold us, keep us full." Alphabet. That's how the letters looked, like tree branches, some gnarled, some bent, some straight, until she sounded them into words. They inhabited the abstract world where mysteries dwelled. Her eyes moved from right to left, so she collected the twiggy letters and sounded them out: Shalom, Chala, concretizing them so I could taste them in my mouth, feel their breath, from my gut, marry the sound. Malayalam was a land of curlicues, snails, snakes, jellyfish, letters with no backbone. They stayed somnambulant. When energized from slumber, they produced melody, kashnam, manslai, samayam, curled my tongue around themes of M's and Y's. Between branches and snails, I grew up with Hebrew in the synagogue and Malayalam at home. And this poem is called Triptych, and it is based on the paintings of the Cochin synagogue. Arrival. In Cranganore, cuckoos anchor the day, bright for ivory and spices. Tusks lean whale heavy against hutment walls, luring sailors from Palestine via Yemen. Odor of fish hangs heavy. In a white dress, her shoulders caressed by sea wind, she leans against a stack of logs, watching immigrants in ochre robes navigate past basking cows and dogs to carry out business, gesturing with their hands. Beyond coconut trees and elephants in the port, wives wait with their babies for their husbands. Another exile. Oh, the sea turns a deep blue, the blue of urgency. We don't despair. The sea has rescued us from the Portuguese, torching our homes in Cranganore, beaching us here on Cochin sands. Gifts pour in. We draw stars on wet mud, follow footprints of the Raja's men from the palace to our homes. Later, Ma Navu El Haharem, how beautiful upon the mountains, rocks us to sleep. Domestic. Sing the parrot song, she begs her mother on Purim. They dance around the room, stepping to Palo de Paramtarvin Payangilie. At night, the little girl dreams of her dear bird, pecking at a dessert of milk and banana. The moon's rim lights the clouds. I'd like to end my poem with Against Erasure. And the epigraph is from Nathan Katz. And the translation from the Hebrew reads, Next year in Cochin. Years ago, I had left Cochin, and I returned when its name changed to Kochi. Her Jewish people are a fine lacework as waves recede. If you find a jawbone in the new foundation, please return it to the rightful owner for reburial. Ich habe überall gesucht, yells a young woman, cycling hard to keep up with her partner. Maybe they're looking for a restaurant, but the German grates eerily against the refrain, Enni Tirtha Dinam, still sung, celebrating British departure from Palestine in 1948. Someone says, we are lucky to have a minyan. On my way to the service, a shopkeeper begs, You will look beautiful in this scarf, auntie. I bark, Do I look like your auntie? I do the touristy thing. I buy a thumb length of lace for $200 because I believe it is the last of its kind made by two octogenarian Italian weavers. I imagine a bride wearing their artwork, serenaded by percussion and pipes. My bones are as creaky as those ferry boats, an elderly man complains, tired of repeating his story. I ask him why the Chinese tiles in the Paradesi synagogue show ships with ballooning sails, the pandemonium of commerce, willow and monasteries lining exotic shores. Those are holy too, he says. I recall, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Everyone, everywhere is Brahman. We are racing against time, intone anthropologists, archiving every letter and coin, for memory is unreliable. My eyes hungrily scan fragments of the past mixed with the present. I know when the ferry drops me off on the opposite shore, words will evade my pen. Thank you very much.
Beautiful, Pramila, as always. And you say memory is unreliable, and yet it's seeped in memory. Yeah, all your poetry. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, you go next. Are you ready?
Yes, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah, and I am a youth poet. And as a youth poet, I find my poetry to be inundated with themes of change, how I am changing and how I see the world around me changing. In Elements, I try to explore the idea that the elements of today have changed from those of myth. We've shifted from earth, air, water, fire to a world that's defined by darker things. So as a youth poet, Usha and Tia mentioned this earlier, but it's very difficult to find youth publishing avenues. And so we have to go through adult avenues. I spent about 2 years editing and submitting my chapbook Elements, and it was a finalist for the Saguaro Poetry Prize for Callista Gaia Press. Thank you. And it will be published in about 2 weeks. Right now it's open for pre-orders, and I have dropped the link in the chat. So in the vein of the idea of the changing elements of the world, I wanted to experiment with the idea of what's ubiquitous today in the way that those old elements once were. So the first poem I'd like to read is called Air: Sexism. I can't breathe under the weight of the atmosphere that pushes me far from my lofty dreams, to crash on earth without wings. I writhe on the ground, hoping for help from the other birds above, but they are vultures, circling, desiring easy pickings. I am netted by men who smile as they pluck my feathers from on, promising equality for all, as they deny me access to the sky. They pull my blood as ink, feather pens glittering sharp in my lungs, and I out this poem, my final breath crumbling under an ever-compressing atmosphere. Thank you. The next poem I want to read is in the golden shovel style, which is a little bit hard to do since it's a reading and you're not seeing it, but essentially the last word of every line combines to the title, which is "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you," which was written by Maya Angelou in I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. It's a glass sculpture hinting at rainbows, but we forged it clear and white, set it there, flip it upside down. Make its reaching hands, don't try for more, reach down. It is only meant to serve. It has no dreams, just glass, cold and hard. And what greater purpose is there than us? And flip it upside down, because why would it feel agony when we forged its figure with the most prominent brains, extra big? Happier here than its home. That's a place of death, disease, and desire, uncomplainingly, aka happy, bearing the weight of us. We are kings, queens, and emperors in new clothes, and an involuntary weight of gratitude, railway tracks, rice, and gold. And oh, I forgot, almost left untold, the name of this amazing art we created by simply, easily, and quietly removing their story, the model minority. Their story, my story. But we hid it behind drive, buried it inside until I don't know what I'm trying to tell you. The next, thank you. The next poem is part of a series of 3 poems called The Primary Colors of Light. And this is the second poem in that miniature series inside Elements. And this is called Green. Before the field that came before the forest that became before the city even began to grow, there was a snail with a big dream, a bug with a big heart, and a frog with a big toe. They lived, they died, they decomposed. Quick, come, claim this land, riches galore to be had. Roots swarmed like soldiers and claimed with imagined flags and drums, no man's land, the rich brown dirt. On blood and guts and victory, their trunks grew strong and mighty. They fought each other to survive and helped each other thrive till they fell to the iron teeth of a human saw. They lived, they died, they decomposed. Quick, come, claim this land, which is galore to be had. paper from life and paper from death, and humans grew rich, surrounded by the cold shadow of concrete. They lived, they died, they decomposed. Quick, come claim this land, riches galore to be had. A fresh-faced shoot, a daisy or grass stalk or clover or mystery cracks through concrete like generations ago. Death offers its symbols and claps at the birth of the cycle in you. Because it's seen everything before and it'll see everything again, and everything. It is green. I want to close out my reading for today with a poem called Fall. This poem I wrote in about 2019. And this is right at the point where I was starting to think about, shoot, I'm growing up. I'm gonna go to college in a few years. I need to start thinking, what am I gonna do with my life? I have no idea. I had no idea at that point. I have a little more idea now, but this is, I think, one of my favorite poems because this is one of the first poems where I really explored what it meant to me to be growing up and sort of my convoluted feelings on change. And so this poem is called Fall. The trees are dotted with the color of flowers. In this season, not still hot, not yet cold. So many paths emerge in the wind for the children leaving to take as they dare each other to do stunts on the way down. My mother holds me close and whispers to me about her own adventures through the wind. I feel my stalk moving. The fibers holding me to her are snapping as she pushes me towards flight. I'm ready for this. I know so much. The feeling of splashing in the rain, the time when the squirrel starts its hoarding of nuts, the way to sing without words. I look to my friends dancing on nearby trees. They shake off their feathers to fly to the world we have never seen untethered, counting on each other to stay together, the millions of things we want to try. I call my pigments to the surface. I turn myself yellow, then red, then brown, and I hide away my green heart. The ground calls, the world is pushing me, and my heart pounds as the wind promises me a lifetime of flight far away. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. I think we all need to unmute and just give a round of applause to Sarah before we proceed.
It's beautiful. It's gorgeous, Sarah.
Thank you for being here,
Beautiful,
Sarah.
beautiful.
Great. Sophia, you go next. Are you ready?
Yes, I am. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much to Matwaala and Usha, Kashiana, Pramila. You're all amazing. I'm going to read a poem called Body of Work from Bach Archipelago. Body of Work, a poem in 6 parts. 1. Heart. While I was away, dirty dishes ate Mount Everest. Zucchini grew monstrously inedible, while 200 cherry tomatoes sank into a desiccated fire. Dahlias died untimely deaths. The swollen mailbox had a baby. Loud bills cried, "Pay me, pay attention." A mirage dissolved. My skipping heart beat. I sank a stone into the marriage pit. 2. Feet. A woman stamped her feet in the desert, and a spring came bubbling up from the hot sand. The way I imagine your touch across the passage that separates us. A mirage, the science of heat. Why was she only a prophet's wife and not a prophet? I'm tired of knowing the answer to that question. The past doesn't hold water anymore. 3. Elbows. What if these bony right angles were actually storm angels? I mean, guardians of flesh and blood, not zither or lyre. Body boomerangs on point across a room, full of eyes and the forecast of hands. What if these elbows made a thunderous fuss, made bus both noun and reverb? 4. Knows. Lord knows. Lord knows how to work these words, a bridge to where you don't turn up yours. 5. Hands. My hands are pregnant and they birth the destiny of alphabet stars on a desert page. My pregnant hands say the night sky is white and the swiftly inked stars are black. The book of the patriarchs warns against the poets, and I, a woman, she, danger, doubling, dabbling, dribbling juice from that delicious peach breach of Helios. The icebox is already empty, Carlos. Don't mess with my pregnant hands. They're sweetly sticky fingers. 6. Eyes. Waking to a sensation of elevation, of rising into unnamed enveloping, not like weightlessness, but a subtle force exerting itself against my torpor. A voice emanates, seemingly from everywhere. Direction is a relative beast in the near darkness. What is the voice saying? Sound, syllables, and alphabets float past in air bubbles from whose throat? An O hovers near. I hook my fingers around its neck like a lover and swallow. A woman covered from head to tail with eyes in the shape of darting fishes is looking at me. A woman with 9,999 eyes. All seeing hands, all seeing strands, all seeing glands. Eat another letter, she commands, reaching into the gelatinous twilight for an almost full moon attached to a stick of stem and popping it in my mouth. It's just like a black-eyed pea. I'm a black-eyed pea, I exclaim. Yes, she smiles. Yes, you are. Eat some more and we will begin. Thank you. Do you have time for one more poem?
Go for it, Sophia.
Okay. This is a tribute to the women of Iran, actually to women everywhere who are rebelling against the patriarchy. It's called Uses of a Length of Fabric. Wrap a grave span around her girl body, smother puberty in folds heavy as blood clots. Make her a wedding bundle. What is hair if and the provenance of pain lies in the terroir of your hands? Muffle her cries, hide the burn marks, or let her dupatta catch fire in an airless kitchen. If all else fails, the clan's honor can be salvaged in a blanket cloud of suffocation or by strangling the rebel in her sleep. Nothing like the fruit of blackmail to grow a pit in her stomach, goad suicide by hanging a twisted bedsheet from a ceiling fan or her favorite mango tree. When you are done, the unstitched muslin obediently shrouds her in its silence, white, washing death. I think I'll stop there because it's just that maybe that's 6 minutes. I have no idea what the time is like.
Let's pause and let's go the full circle and come back, Sophia, if you need to. Just everyone, I took some action. I think we are good on Zoom. So, however, I did paste an alternate link in the chat. If everyone can just save it, just in case we happen to get disconnected. We should not. I tried to take some quick action. All right, Sophia, thank you. And the lushness of your reading, as well as your words and the ghazal-like quality, which I think is no surprise to everybody, is just beautiful and breathtaking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Usha, Dia is here. Is Dia ready to read, or would we welcome her into the forum next time?
I think next time, when her book is ready and she has the cover to share.
Okay, great. Yes, and Sophia, do you have your book before we shift to? That's a beautiful cover. I wanted everybody to take a minute and admire it. Is that your own painting, Sophia?
Yes, this is my own artwork, and actually the Indian edition is also coming out. I have a book launch in Bombay on the 20th and at the Bangalore Poetry Festival after that. So that's a different cover. I don't have that in my hand, but both artworks were done by me. Thank you so much.
Megha, can you lift your cover as well? I missed having you lift your cover. I know it's a beautiful cover too. Thank you. Thank you. All right. With that, Usha, I know you said you would not. Here's my request to you. Why don't you read at least one, and then I can jump in with one of mine.
Why don't you go ahead first, Kashyana, as
Okay.
as per the plan, and I'm supposed to introduce you. So I just want to say, I reread your poems for the event today, and I felt these were poems. This is what I wrote to you. I know, rocking in a cradle of light, with such infectious hope, which kind of permeates whatever subject you tackle. And I know this. On the back of your book, I just want to share with all of you the blurb that I have for Kashyana. Singh's poetry universe is one of hidden corners, apertures of light, and the liminality of experience verbing into memory. A poetry replete with metaphors of passageways and openings. Personal myth making is alchemized from the pixels of memories to define what it is to be a woman in this world. So that's Kashyana for you. And I think we let her poems speak for themselves.
Okay. I will jump in, and thank you for letting me read too. It's always a delight, and it feels a little unnecessary with all the lovely work we've read, but I hope you enjoy the poem. The first poem I'm going to read is called Portrait of a Mother in America. Portrait of a Mother in America. You are an unstoppable maverick. You tenderly define the fossils we shall be. You are restless as you lie awake. Your forgiveness is now a lung emptied of breath. You are monastic as you listen to the bells ring. Your joy transient in yet another uncounted night. You are a widow wailing at the steps of a lake, a practiced palanquin bearer of skinned surrender. You are a witch with long arms. They embrace bodies showered from dilating skies. You are songwriter, fact narrator. Watchwords are written in your inherited ink. You are awake, you awaken, teasing your dreadlocks into witness stands. For the dead, you are yesterday's battles and tomorrow's cries. You beat in ballads, rehearse poems to throbbing drums. You are louder with each breath. You penetrate a deafening normal inside and outside. You are repetition. You sketch a scrawl that leaves scars on a country's cardboard map. You are hunger. Your sharp tongue bites into cornbread. Ready again for another funeral pageantry. You are unabashed. You offer your breast to beating chest, fostering care for conjugated loss. You are ricocheted through our muscles and our mistakes. Your prayer is a pause inside vacant throats. You are conversation to our silence. You pour questions into coagulated eyes. You are a mosaic of common journey. Your pilgrimage is to places where multitudes died. You are sister, you are princess. Your dance in compassion, holding your head held high. You are your ancestors. You are healer. You make garments of their velvet, flagellated skins. You are language, farmer of roots. You nourish the irreverence of all marching youth. You are baptized, you are ostracized. You drink from the thirsty fountain of wakeful lives. You are time of all moonless times. You rudder the sea to the sky. You swallow meteorites. You are inadequate in your cones. You ache in zams that sing into life and afterlife. You are relentless, a stitcher of quilts. You fill it with absence, thread it with sinew of barren wombs. Portrait of a Mother in America. I'm going to shift themes a little bit and then end hopefully to the same place. The next one is called Curdled Milk, and I'll bring it up here. Curdled milk. He and I never succeed in our attempt to mobilize a conversation about your death. All the light between our walls fails to muscle through the dark disconnectedness of a cauterized veins. It flickers like curdled milk. It flickers like curdled milk simmering on a stove. The conversation lingers incoherently, neither here nor there, delusional. It leaves a sour taste at the tip of our tongues. Our silence settles to the bottom of the pan. A weary landscape holds all unfinished chunks, burnt, scraping the bowl for curds and whey. A few lacerated memories quiver in my hands, phantoms straining themselves through the fine muslin of our efforts. They release palatable emblems of memories that consolidate into blocks of neatly pressed paneer. A fresh memory of you becoming man, a wiry beard sprouting in a hurry on days soft like cotton candy, others a wasteland, another of you untangling your ever tangled laces, murmuring to yourself that favorite song, the words crackling like youth, full of both song and dance, the repeat picture of you drowning in a biscuit cake, cheeks plastered, crumbs scraped off the plate, so much eaten, so much distributed, glucose biscuits, butter, cream had been whisked into beams of heaven itself. So blissful you looked, digging into it slice after slice. Our memories that consolidate into blocks of neatly pressed paneer. When chopped, it mobilizes an aseptic conversation that crumbles into a heated walk. Human seeds splutter peacefully. He and I talk then about your death. Here, the boisterous storm settles into a pale dawn. Curdled milk. The last one I'll read is country, just to keep to the theme. Country. When did you stop listening to your own, become unwilling to look into our eyes, look away from your own opiate limbs, look away from birthmarks on your skin, look away from falling blisters of your eyes? When did you become so lazy that you let the claws of your feet burrow deep, trapped in your own blemished ground, unmoving even when being eaten alive? By the blooming anguish of your people, by odors from floating carcasses of your soul, by the waves that beat against the sunken scales of your ghosts, by sordid drippings of fleas fleeing your own mouth. At this very moment, I am a lighthouse standing in watch. I am carving my solitary light into ripples, each ripple a caterpillar pupating, a butterfly pulsating, to Panchakritya of Tandav dance, its wings flapping to the spitting fire of a trillion monarchs. Unwilling to die a pause until you listen to the whistling of their alliterative song. They will circle you into an orchestrated garland, evacuating your cauldron of prayers and pledges until you hear their buzzing silence. They will drink incessantly of your matted milkweed. They will churn intemperate until you hear anew. For if you don't, an apocalypse is coming, closer and closer and closer towards your shore. You have time now to gaze outwards and listen, to act before being engulfed into the whirlpool of growling stillness, to become the country we knew, to become the country we knew. Country. Thank you. Thank you. Usha, back to you.
Is there time, Kasha?
Yes, let's do one and then we can
Okay.
run.
All right. So I'm going to read the title poem of my upcoming chapbook. It's called Embade, and it's coming out in December or January by Dancing Girl Press. Every city I live in is a rib ruptured from my rib cage. In turn, the city teaches me to cover my nakedness, offers me serpents' tongues, devious gods, poisoned apples bringing heartbreak. Then on I kayak rapids, falling from a god's hair, home longing, the slim paddle pushing me on in unsaid desperation. Then on I am free, giddy with flight, a smear of landings and takeoffs, borders melt, blue-blooded with anthems of loss. Our fathers' voices recede like balding hairlines from memory. There are no Edens we know by now, only orchards of lament, passports for exile, and visas of unbelonging. For the embade, holding the torch of liberty in a zari brocaded sari, jasmine in my hair, welcoming my sisters to a barricaded island, cities the bells on my adorned feet. Out there, a splintering water holds my arrivals and departures. I begin in one country, end in another. An upside down tree I root above, descend with many arms to embrace countries. My citizenry is questionable. I will not show you the pages of what seems like a stolen passport. The contours of my destiny are paradoxical. Bride sometimes, widow sometimes, paisley henna ripening and fading. If I am hyphenated, I am also conjoined. This sea of verse holds my secrets, invisible poems, my faces, this grove of syllables, my bread and rice, my river of content and discontent. Thank you.
He just needs a moment of silence for what we've just heard across. And Usha, that was stunning, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. And before we have a few minutes for those who are willing to hang around, but any questions for each other, or any questions from anybody who joined us as listeners and not poets, please throw them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask the question. While we wait, Megha, maybe the question for you was, did you always know that that's going to be the title?
My body is not. Thanks, Kachiana, for the question. And the first, my chapbook was titled "My Body Is Not an Apology," and yes, I knew about it. Like, this is one of the strongest poem in the collection, and it speaks about the underlying emotion which runs across the chapbook. So I chose that very specifically. And for my full length, "My Body Lived Like a Thread," I chose that poem as the title because the main theme of the book is like about the body shaming and the body politics, and how it always never remains at an individual level, and it molds and morphs into a social monster, birthing all sorts of problems, like from sexual and gender based discrimination, reproductive rights, migration and displacement, like how the body of a woman is seen as a threat, body of a migrant worker, body of a immigrant, body of a person of a color is seen as threat. So my book is divided into 5 sections, and each section focus on one particular issue about the body identity. So yeah, it's so when I did the chapbook was only focused on one issue about the women, which has been subjugated for generation and generation about the issues. But then I realized that there are so many issues and they are centered at the body, how body is being treated like a threat, and that gave the birth to my full length collection.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. I think I knew of that a little, but it's good to hear it always from the poet's perspective. Pramila, one question for you is, one thing that I always listening to you reading is one of the phrases is "another exile" in one of your poems. I don't remember which one. Can you tie your work, especially this book, with that phrase? What does that mean?
Yeah. So when people, first pick up the book, they say, "Why are you writing about the Jews of Cochin? I mean, are you Jewish?" And the answer is, "No, I'm not Jewish." But the thing is that you have to think in terms of our own, leaving a country and going elsewhere, and imagining people immigrating into one country, and what are they leaving behind. So the question about leaving and arriving and the kind of things that happen in terms of keeping one's identity and then losing something. So the gains and losses are very much there, uh, you know, in this kind of leaving and arriving. And also there's a sense of how do you build, how do you maintain identity? So that's a question that has always interested me about people who are displaced, and how do they figure out how to find belonging. So finding belonging is something that concerned me a lot. So I was investigating this particular strand of Jewish migration, which interestingly, when I read all the anthropology textbooks, scholars, they were talking about how the migration happened even from the 3rd century onwards. And the second strand happened right after the Spanish Inquisition in the 15th century. So I was very interested in exploring that. And I learned so much from this exploration. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah,
So the
I love how
commonalities
you.
are stunning. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Pramila. I love how you did that and took such a broad, expansive question, and then also made it very personal by narrowing it to the place where you grew up, right? And you saw all of this around you. That's very, very great for me. And that's a general, I mean, Indran, of course, everybody knows, and your anthem is for recovery or for the country and identity. Usha is like always about womanhood and identity. There is a theme across the board, right? That we heard Sophia yours, Afsar, yours. Any other comments? I don't want to be the only one asking questions. Anyone has a question for each other? Any closing comments? I don't want to hold people up otherwise. Usha, go ahead. Afsar, go
No,
ahead.
Afsar, go ahead, go ahead.
Thank you, Shani. I have a question for Sarah. Actually, I'm so kind of fascinated by your idiom. I just want to hear a little bit about how you kind of came up with this idiom.
Sarah,
Sarah.
questions for you.
Could you hear me, Sarah?
I got the first half. Sorry,
Oh,
the
sorry.
very loud. So
Sorry.
how I came up with the idea for the book?
Right. I just wanted to hear more about your kind of journey of this language.
So I have been learning poetry with Usha Auntie for, what is it, 9 years now, Auntie? Have we hit 9?
I stopped counting, Sarah.
So I've been writing with Auntie for a very long time. My very first poem was 32 lines about the color black. And it was all rhyming, and I look back at it and I cringe a little bit, but it's okay. I've come a fair bit from there. And so the idea for this book actually came also from Usha Auntie. She was looking at some of my work at the start of the pandemic. And she said, "Look, Sarah, you've just moved." I had moved from Georgia to from Texas to Georgia at that moment. And she said, "Look, you've been writing so much. You were stuck in your house this whole time. All you've been doing is writing. You should do something with this. You shouldn't just be just the two of us reading these poems anymore. You should try to do something more with them." And so that was sort of the spark to start to compile the book. I ended up writing most of the book after we had that initial spark. And I realized very early on that I wanted the central theme to be change, evolution, because that's something that I feel that as a youth poet, as someone going through that, I have some experience with. And I can't say I have a lot of experience in 18 years, but this is something I felt like I could try to talk about a little bit. And I was just very excited to try to share my poetry with the world in a new way. And so it has a lot of different pieces and elements, because I didn't go into it thinking it's going to be a very concise, like it's going to be very focused. So it has a lot of different sections, some that are more experimental. I have a section of reverse poetry, a section of golden shovels. But it was a lot of fun to write. And really that's what I set out to do, to try to capture my voice as a youth poet undergoing this period of change. And sort of the elements that make up me and the world I see.
You are 18 and wise. I just put that in the chat, Sarah. It blows my mind. So thank you, and all power and
You should all give a
encouragement to
big
you.
clap to Usha for encouraging Sarah and keeping the future of poetry alive.
And Dia's coming too next year
Yeah.
with hers.
That's
So
good. Yeah.
they've done beautiful work. Dia's is all ekphrasis, and it's just stunning. The publisher came back saying she wished she could write like that. So they're taking the torch. They hold the torch. These girls. Thank you for being so encouraging, and try to buy their books if you can, because I think it's so thrilling at 18 to have a purchase, to have your book purchased. It's a really, will mean a lot to them, I think.
Usha, if you could send the links of the books in an email as well, because sometimes
Okay.
in the chat it's difficult
Yeah.
to.
I will do that.
I have a
So-
question for Sophia. Sophia, I'm always impressed by how your poem moves on the page, and how you move from one idea into the next and then find that right word. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the process in your writing.
Yes, thank you, Pramila. So I've always believed that poetry is essentially movement. You know, it's the movement of the word, you know, becoming across the lines across the page, and then and it is also well, the whole book, Bach Archipelago, is about journeys. You know, it's about journeys of migration, is about journeys of in external journeys and internal journeys. And in this, I inhabit various personae. You know, I inhabit. I have inhabited some of these personae. You know, everyone is part and parcel of it, but I'm always sensitive to the orality of the poem. And I think this is what we have inherited. It's very prominent in South Asia, the orality of the poem, which creates the momentum of the movement. So I think in my process, I always try to read the poem aloud before I ever, you know, finalize it. So I think that the two lives of the poem are really when one is when you write it and the other is when you perform it, because when you perform it, then you have the interaction with the reader, and then actually the reader gives it the third life, because the reader can read it and then they infuse their own like interpretation or color or meaning into it. So I think that it's always I foreground orality, and I actually compose most of my poetry is composed while I'm walking. I have a poetry practice that involves walking every morning, and this is when the idea comes and it takes form, because you know, even in it, the movement is embedded in the language of poetry. You know, we talk about the feet and we talk about meter. You know, there's distance and movement always is embedded in it.
Thank you. I mean, it's great that you're connecting it with the orality in our tradition. Of course, it's a great reminder. Thank you.
Well,
Thanks for that question, Pramila. That was a great question. And I think some of what Sophia said, the pomegranate and the gladioli and the jasmine flowers, like even just the food and fragrance that all of us saw, I think, in each other's poetry was very visible. The other common thing I heard, probably our obsession with moon came through in almost everyone's writing.
I must I would like to thank everyone. I have to go because of a commitment here, but I want to just say thank you. I do want to ask one just very maybe broad question. What is it that brings all of our poetry together? What is the theme that unites all of our poetry? If there is such a one theme, one world, one, I don't know, I'm just a question to think about whether there is, because movement, as Sophia was mentioning, is, yes, that is the poem. So that I think of dance, and then I think of music and word music, but is there some theme, subject that we dance, that we all dance, is a question I'd like to sort of throw out for reflection. And thank you so much. And I have, yeah. Well,
Indrani, if
instead
I
I have
can
to go.
respond to your
Go ahead.
question. Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I think all of us, when we are pushed, you know, we are deeply impacted by something. Poets generally are agents of change. So as Sarah has talked about her book being changed, so I think all of us, all poets, not just all of us on this platform today, I think all poets or all writers are impassioned to bring forth to the reader something they feel deeply about, which may require changes. So whether it's, you know, the various isms in our lives, whether it's personal or the public spaces, whatever the sub themes might be, but I think the overall intent of all of the participants today and otherwise in poets, I think the intent, at least as I see it, is to talk about something that is maybe deeply wrong or deeply unjust. So something tells us that we have to voice our views on that. Now, how we do it then becomes, that will bring the element of difference. And I appreciated what Sophia said about walking, because I also, Sophia, most of my ideas come early morning walking or driving when I'm driving the car. And that's very tough because, ideas vanish from the mind. So when I'm driving and I will sometimes pull over to the side and quickly send myself a text, or in the night, I keep a diary next to me. So wake up in the night, a thought will come and I quickly, note down in my phone and a diary. So yeah, I just wanted to respond, Indra, if that makes sense, what I said.
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Indran, I know you need to drop. We are
Yeah, I have to
probably
go.
wrapping as well, but thank you again for being
Thank
here,
you so
Indran.
much.
And we're all sending our prayers for
Thank you,
your
Indran.
mom.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so much.
Indran.
Thank you.
Indran.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Lovely.
Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, here I am. Okay.
Anything else before we wrap up? Thank you again, everybody, for joining. Usha, any closing comments?
I think I probably have one question for you, Kashyana, and uh, and that is, I remarked that, both in your personality and in your poetics, this infectious and uh, hope that just permeates your work, even when you're tackling something very dark, very, very something, even something very defeating, something very complex. Your view of the human condition, your view of humankind, your hope for the world, your hope for all of us is just like a lamp to me. When I read your work, I feel um, I'm walking on a corridor with lit lights. That's what your poems do for me. So I just want to know, where do you draw that positivity from? I think.
Thank you, first of all. I'm blessed that you feel that way or anyone feels that way. I just one, it's hard to answer that question because it's so ingrained in who you are as an individual and what you grew up with. But really the positivity that I get, or the looking forward, maybe, right? Always trying to look forward, is from what I follow, which is Guru Nanak's philosophy of the everyday is the worship. What you do every day is the worship. You do not need to go to the Himalayas, but this you're being a grandmother, a mother, a worker, a colleague, a poet, is where you find your worship. And that's what I try to do every day, Usha.
Thank you, Kashyana. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. I think one last thing I'd like to say is I'm really happy that Pramila didn't have to do any work for this reading, and she was a guest and she could take a step back and enjoy being a guest, and that's because of Kashyana. Kashyana, thank you for your lovely posters. Thank you for the time, for the meticulous planning that you put in. I've got more of a hippie attitude, I think, and Kashyana comes in more planned and more regularized with everything. Thank you all for your work. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You inspire us to do what we do. And Matwala, this is a very emblematic reading, as why we started Matwala was to celebrate the diaspora. So we are thriving and we are alive because you are thriving, and I don't want to sound like an ad get into advertisement jargon, but truly, Matwala lives because of your work, and so keep coming, keep supporting. Really, that's all. It's very simple. Say good words, say kind words, promote each other. If you go to a festival, leave a book there for the organizers so they can invite another South Asian poet. So that's what we try to do. Pramila and I, we try to buy your books. We try to leave books at festivals. We try to forward your names. It's never been enough for both Pramila and I to just move forward alone. I think we both get a lot of happiness when we're moving together. we want to take everyone along. So open up your hearts. I think there's no point being a poet and being close-hearted. You have to have a big open heart, and let's do this together. So that's really all. Okay.
Lovely words, Usha, and I echo everything that Usha says, and I want to say a special thank you to Kashiana for helping us with the poster and basically spearheading today's event. Thank you, Kashiana.
My
Thank you.
privilege. Thank you. And let's open our hearts. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend and enjoy yourselves. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Blessings and good weekend to everyone.
Bye.